Welcome, everyone. It's Matt, and today we're going to talk about the Dynamax fire analysis with all the units from April 2025 included. We're going to talk about who's the best attacker, who's the best defender slash tank, and who's our best healer, all in the fire group. Stay tuned. All right, we're going to start with number one, in the Pokedex at least, Dynamax Charmander. Charmander takes increased damage from ground, rock, and water, and it takes reduced damage from bug, fairy, fire, grass, ice, and steel. The IV when you fight Charmander, when it is out, and I still fight it as often as I can because I need those candies really, really badly. As I've kind of tried to level up way too many Charizards, if possible. We're looking for a 560. That would be your hundo. I usually get 525, but 516 is your floor. We're going to talk about Charizard because Charizard's not just fire, it is also a flying type. So it takes double damage or 156% additional. So it's actually not double, it's awful lot more of rock. So if you're fighting Charizard, you are definitely going to be countering with a rock type Blastoise, as that will absolutely decimate Charizard. We also have increased damage from electric and water, but Charizard is actually not weak, but takes reduced damage from fairy, fighting, fire, ground, and steel at the normal 37.5% resistance, has a 60.9% resistant in bug and grass, which means basically grass types fear Charizard, as they should. And the stats are pretty good for attack at 223, even though, interestingly enough, it's actually really low Dynamax, at least, attack on the fire aspect. Defense is 173, which is average, and its HP is on the lower end at 186. Charizard evolutions on the left-hand side here. 125 candy to take it from a Charmander all the way up to a Charizard. Now, with the Charizard moveset, either with Dynamax or Gigantamax, we are looking at both Fire and or Air Slash. For Charizard G-Max, you're probably just going to stick with Fire Spin because, honestly, you might be using this as a tank, especially if you have a G-Max and you think you can take it through all the way through, and also Air Slash. If you feel really comfortable in your elite TMs, Dragon Breath is an interesting fast attack for your G-Max only. You do not want to use Dragon Breath at all for the Dynamax because it is a fire and flying type. It is not a dragon type, which I always would say I prefer dragon over flying, but it's Charizard. Flying, I understand. And because of that, Dragon Breath for the Dynamax does not get the same type attack bonus. So it's 20% less damage using Dragon Breath, and that's including your transformation attack. So, all in all, I would stay away from that for your Dynamax, but for the Gigantamax, I always will be doing fire moves, to be quite honest. Dragon Breath is the fastest attack, and Dragon is usually pretty much neutral against most creatures you're fighting, anyways. So, having a 5.5 second, and I believe my memory serves me correctly, that is the only 0.5 second in the entire fire family right now. So the Dragon Breath is definitely an interesting move for your G-Max Charizard, especially since it can tank fairly okay. From an attacker standpoint, the Dynamax is one of the weakest, if not the weakest. I didn't put it at a 1, but I put it at a 2. But interestingly enough, the G-Max is actually the strongest attacker out of all of them. So it goes all the way up to a 10. And that kind of tells you the difference between the lowest fire and the highest fire in attack. It's only within that 25 to 28%. So they're all fairly similar in power. As a tank, it is very good. And as a healer, it's for fire types at least, it's pretty poor. Has the least HP out of all of them. If we're going to go with the attacker in every day or every, if we're trying to look for something that we don't really care for the element that we're attacking. The Dynamax is actually pretty much right on average. The Gmax is still one of the better attackers overall. Not top tier. People might argue I should have it at another notch below, but I put it at 9 only because it has also the ability to do a fast attack at 0.5 seconds using Dragon. It has the ability to also use flying if need be. And so, because of all the ability for at least its fast attack as well, I kind of like there. Yeah, I know it's only good at the Gmax and only use fire, but all in all, it's still pretty interesting attacker. For a tank, there are a lot better tanks out there. Fire types tend to be a little bit stronger on the attack side and weaker on the defense side. And from a healer standpoint, still pretty weak, but there are other weaker units out there. So now let's go to Dynamax Scorbunny. Scorbunny isn't going to change typing when you evolve it like Charizard does. It is just a fire type, so it's pretty simple. It's going to be ground, rock, and water. It takes increased damage from and takes reduced damage from bug, fairy, fire, grass, ice, and steel. Its attack, defense, and stamina are below. The IVs are a little bit higher off the bat with Scorbunny. Hundo is 627. Floor is 579. Going to Cinderace when its take doesn't increase or decrease anything from the weakness and strengths. Its overall evolution is very similar to Charizard, where it's 125 candy to fully upgrade it. And its stats, the attack is 238. Defense is much worse at 163, and the stamina slightly better than Charizard at 190. Its fast moves are you're kind of locked to Fire Spin. The reason why I say you're locked to Fire Spin is right now we've only got a Dynamax Cinderace. You really, if you're going to plan on using it as your attacker, Cinderace, you're going to be using Fire Spin. You are not going to be using Cinderace as your tank. So that 0.5 second move is kind of not needed. Frankly, I don't think you're going to be using Cinderace as your attacker either. And obviously, as a healer, it's not really top tier either. We're really waiting for the Gmax. But at that point, I'm not sure when it's going to come. Overall, even though I do think it would be kind of nice because from a fire standpoint, yeah, it's still a good attacker, but we're really, really short on Cinderace for its Gmax would help the attack overall. As an attacker, it's just slightly better than the Dynamax Charizard, so it's a 3. Tank, it's not the worst in fire, but overall it's quite poor. And from a tanking standpoint, we really don't have that many great options. We do have one that's coming up relatively soon. And as a healer, it's also pretty poor. It's only slightly better than Charizard. If you go for overall attacker, even though it's weak in fire, it's still pretty good overall compared to all the other elements. If you're attacking something that you just don't have the element to, but it's neutral otherwise, Cinderace can be used. I'd rather be using some of the future fire units that I'll be talking about, or the Gmax Charizard if you have it. As I said, as a tank, it's pretty much worthless, and a healer, it's not really useful at all. Next is one of the more interesting units, Pokemon, is Moltres. Moltres was a really fun Max Monday battle. If you have one, you should pretty much enjoy, as it's a great unit. If you don't have one, there are slightly better units overall. Entei is definitely one that I think is slightly better than Moltres. More because I like the tankiness, but we're kind of digressing here. The CP is 1980. Sorry, I have both CPs here. That's just from another slide that I did a long time ago. So that's what you're looking for CP is 1980. And its floor is 1896. I got me a lot of 1920s. I was definitely living the flapper life when I was going for the Moltres. Got 5 of them. I didn't get a single one over 1920 8, if I remember correctly. So my IVs were pretty poor. Luckily, the IVs are relatively meaningless. They only give you a couple percentages from floor to max on each stat, but it's still nice to have a decent one, which I couldn't get. Moltres takes high damage from rock. It is just like Charizard. It is both fire and flying type, so it does give you both abilities. It is weak against electric and water as well. And just like Charizard, it's strong against fairy fighting, fire, ground, and steel, which only takes 63% of its damage and only 39% damage of bug and grass. These make them better tanks overall, especially against grass. 39% is a really nice decrease. Its attack is pretty high at 251 with its defense at 181, and HP is actually pretty good overall. The fast attack you're most likely going to use is Fire Spin. If you are looking for a flying type that's going to do flying type damage, Moltres is actually a pretty good one as well. So if you want to use it as one of your flying type Dynamax units, it's not a bad idea either. But really, especially since we're talking about fire right now, I'm going to just check mark Fire Spin. But kind of to each your own, and it's kind of dependent on what battle you're planning on using Moltres. It can use for both. All in all, though, it's still only got 1 second moves. And that's the weakness of the fire. Really, so far, we've only had Charizard with the dragon type that's had a 0.5 second move. And I think that that is the weakest part of the fire group overall, is its lack of really fast attacks. As an attacker, it is pretty much middle of the pack for fire. And yes, it has a very high attack stat to begin with. But once again, that's what you expect out of fire. As a tank, it's really good. Healer, it's right into it's slightly better overall. From an attacker, it's pretty good. Tank is decent, and healer is on the middle edge overall. Next is Darumaka. We're going to go with the Darumaka here. And once again, I took this from a much earlier slide, so it's got both. But we're only looking for the 823 hundo here. 768 is the floor. I think I have a Darumaka in the 818 range. So it's a pretty good IV. It's one of my few fire IVs that I'm actually proud of. Darumaka is just like Cinderace and Charmander, but not Charizard, where it is just a fire type, so it's weak to ground, rock, and water, and it's strong against, will take reduced damage from bug, fairy, fire, grass, ice, and steel. Upgrading it doesn't change any of the strengths and weaknesses that increase or decrease damage, but it does only take 50 candy to upgrade. It does have incredible attack, horrific defense, and pretty good HP overall. It does have a 0.5 second normal fast move, but because it's a Dynamax, you're really focusing on fire. Incinerate is just way too long of attack. It is pretty much worthless in 5-star fights. But in fairness, Darmanitan is not going to be out there unless if you feel very comfortable that you have a tank friend that is going to carry you so that you can use Darmanitan. Fire Fang is going to be the attack that you want, just because obviously you're going to want to be using the same type attack bonus, which is going to be your fire in your transformation form. As an attacker, it is very, very good, especially for its Dynamax form. Tank, it is very, very poor. And as a healer, it's not great in the. It's not bad at all for the healer. And actually, it is pretty much top tier for fire, other than one other unit, which we'll be talking about soon. In general, it's still a very good attacker and very poor tank, but as a healer, it is a little bit below average, as fire types tend to be more of the burning cannon type. They're not quite glass cannons. They do have a little bit more sturdiness, but not much. And Darmanitan is the glassiest of the fire cannons here. Finally, we have Entei, or Entei, as some people here, but my area call it Entei. Mostly because my specific region accent kind of pushes us there. But potato. CP 1984 is a good year, and the CP you're looking for, especially since when I'm taking this out, we're going to be seeing this within a week. Floor is 1900, so if my luck holds, I'll be still flapping in the 1920s. It is weak to ground, rock, and water because it's only a fire type, and it's strong to bug, fairy, fire, grass, ice, and steel. Its stats are pretty good overall, especially for fire types. Its defense is a little less than Moltres, but it has really good attack, considering it's a tankier one that has really good HP overall. For the fast moves, honestly, you choose whichever one you get, you just keep. It doesn't matter to switch either or. And as a fire type, it's happy with either. As an attacker, for fire type, is relatively poor, but still pretty much average or maybe even slightly above average if you compare it to everywhere else. But from a tank standpoint, it's a really good tank. I have it rated really high because of its ability with its HP and interesting resistances. Um, that just really gives it a decent amount of use. And as a healer, it's the best healer in fire type, and one of the few fire types that's actually got good HP overall. And it's a mid-level healer overall. And from it for it being a tank that you can also do decent attacking with, the healing capabilities to one of the few times where dabbling in it, it's not a bad idea. It is not Blissey, it is not Chansey, it is not Snorlax, but overall, because it still is a better tank than either of them, as long as it's brought in the right category and it has pretty good attack overall. It's something that it could be used as a secondary or tertiary healer if needed. After this, we're going to look at the fire, and you can see that this is the only class where its Dmax version is the lowest attack and its Gmax version is the highest attack, with actually stuff in between other than maybe one other thing. So the fire classes all got really good attack. So even a poor attacking Dmax Charizard is still better than a lot of other units in general. Obviously, the Gmax Charizard will have the highest damage, but it's not that much more than even, like, say, Darmanitan or even Moltres. Actually, even Cinderace and Entei aren't that bad. But really, the big issue is, as I say, Cinderace really doesn't have a niche at all. And it's one that we're getting a lot of right now that we can farm. Entei doesn't look all that interesting, but with its defensive capabilities and with fire being such a powerful attack type, this really is nice overall. And Moltres is also a pretty interesting attack slash defense type as well, especially with it having the flying and fire. It has really good grass and bug reductions, but Gmax Charizard also has roughly the same and slightly better attack. And with such large ones, I would be leaning a little bit more towards Gmax Charizard. So if I had to choose two that I would be farming, would be Charizard or Charmander during the fights, and I would be putting in Entei or as many Enteis as I can into power spots to get the candy going, because obviously it's a pain in the butt to get the candies for both the Moltres and Entei. Finally, we are going to do the two top fire units for each role. For attacker, we have Gmax and only Gmax Charizard, as Dmax, you can see, is actually relatively low. And interestingly enough, Charizard is a very good tanker, but doesn't hit to any of the tanks at all or defenders. There are better defenders than Charizard. Second best attacker is Darmanitan for Dmax, and it's actually relatively cheap to farm. For defenders, the best defender is Moltres, followed very closely to Entei. All in all, Moltres has slightly better attack. They both have relatively different resistances, and I could actually see building both of those, but the candies are going to be a bit rougher in that regards for each. But if you really need the quote unquote cheaper defender, Charmander slash Charizard is also a very good defender, has the same elements as Moltres. If you're still willing to do two and you're only willing to do one of the two, I would do Charizard and Entei as your two then. Mostly because, and I would do Gmax only Charizard if you can, because then you'll have a really good attacker and tank that just doesn't have much healing capability. Entei, though, is also got the ability to heal. It's a little weaker than Moltres, but not that much weaker in the attack. And I just kind of like that combination better a little bit more than Moltres. And so I will be trying to spend most of my time getting Entei candy and the power spots. Finally, for healer, Entei is number one, followed by Darmanitan. And so that is our fire type, at least for April. This series, we have already done the water, which you can click up here, up in the upper right hand corner. And on top of that, I will be doing more of these elements overall. Some of the elements I may be skipping at least initially because they've only got one or two types. And with that, they may just actually be all combined with maybe a like a multi-elemental one until we get more of the elements overall. But this is going to be something that's going to be reoccurring, that I'm going to be updating on a somewhat regular basis. My hope is that we're going to get a lot more Dmax units released a little faster than we've got so that we can really start filling up all of these roles. It also makes it a little bit more interesting for everyone else. On top of it, if you haven't liked and subscribed, that is greatly helpful for my channel. You can also reach me on twitch.tv/MattGuru. I will be live a lot more, especially during the summertime, as a lot of my other activities are more winter related. And you can, when I am live, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. I definitely do a lot of interacting with the community through that as well. Also, you can shout out ideas and any questions that you may have also through the comment section below. But with that, I promise to do better next time, and good luck, everyone. I'll see you all later. Bye.